good luck. Good afternoon from the Asia Europe Foundation here in Singapore. My name is Leonie Nagarajan. I am from ASEF's Education Department and I will be your host today. And together with my colleagues from the Education Department, Freya Chow Paul and Quentin Veit, I warmly welcome you to the 4th ASEF Young Leaders Summit on Sustainable Development in a Post-COVID-19 World. So this ASEF Young Leaders Summit is the official youth event of the 13th ASEM Summit, which in fact is currently hosted by the Government of Cambodia. While we are meeting now, the opening ceremony of this political summit is also taking place, and we are extremely proud that we have 3 youth representatives who are delivering an ASEM Youth Declaration to the leaders in about half an hour's time. So good luck to them, make us proud, make your peers proud. During our ASEF Young Leaders Summit, we focused on 4 Sustainable Development Goals, SDG3, Good Health and Well-being, SDG4, Quality Education, SDG8, Decent Work and Economic Growth, and SDG13, Climate Action. And today is a special session. During our 1-week ASEFYLS Summit program, we have several parts. During the first part, we will speak about Sustainable Development Goal 8. We have, as in the past days, a number of participant teams who develop leadership and action projects on this particular SDG, and they are going to present their outcomes and achievements today and also what they have learned in terms of leadership over the past months. Then for the second part, we look forward to a panel discussion on youth leadership with youth leaders and experts both from Asia and Europe and even beyond. We are crossing today a little bit our traditional ASEM constituency. As part of that ASEF Young Leaders program, we have worked since February on a comprehensive ASEM youth report on youth leadership. And that focuses on youth experiences, but also opportunities and barriers towards youth leadership in both regions. So some of the insights will be shared with you today, but you have to definitely stay tuned because the actual publication will be made available to you by tomorrow. So today is a panel discussion. We hear from experts and get some first insights, and hopefully this is an appetizer for you to join us tomorrow and download the report for further details. Yeah, as for all our summit sessions, we have note-taking services available for you. So my greetings now go to James, who sits close to me in another room. He takes care of that. So please check out the link if you would like to use these note-taking services. And Parkat, who's our other inclusion advisor, he's also ensuring that all the presentations, PowerPoints are as accessible and screen reader friendly as possible. So big thanks to both of them. And with this, I think we can go now to a little bit more details about the session today, but first a general framework for those who are joining us for the first time and are not yet familiar with our program. So the ASEF Young Leaders Summit was a 10-month-long leadership program. We had over 180 young leaders from 51 Asian and European countries with us. As you can see on this slide here, there were several elements which composed this Young Leaders program. And maybe I focus on the bigger parts. We started in February with an intensive knowledge building phase on the SDGs. We had leadership webinars, intercultural online communication, collaborations and communication campaigns. We also had a few ASEM virtual youth dialogues with Prime Minister and Head of States, as well as ASEM leaders. Then in June, we moved forward to an action phase. This is basically what our session is about today, because 15 groups worked on the ground or online on concrete activities which can help the Sustainable Development Goals contribute to Agenda 2030. Yeah, and now this week, the actual summit week, we reunite, reflect, and present the outcome of our work. So what are these leadership and action projects, which are the focus of our today's session? These are activities entirely led by our participants. They focus on one of the four ASEFYLS4 thematic areas. And time frame was between June to November. So today we have 4 presentations, and we'll have a short Q&A afterwards. The audience is invited also to comment, to give encouragement to our participants who really did fantastic work over the past months. And I'm excited to hear from you, our ASEFYLS peers, participants, what you have been up to. So let's start with our first session.
Recording in progress.
And that is on economic diplomacy as an engine of growth and prosperity. So I warmly invite Alexandra and Duk-An to...
Okay. So,
yes, so 1 second. I just finished my short introduction to you. I know that you're representing us today. I have to congratulate you first, because I know that yesterday some of you also were part of the first Asia-Europe Economic Business Forum, where you presented your work. Congratulations to that. So that was probably the premiere yesterday. Today is the premiere for the young leaders. So the floor is now yours, Dugan.
Thank you, Leonie. Now you've sort of spoiled one of our major outcomes that I was about to present at the end. But so I'd like to start by thanking Sekar, our navigator, obviously Leonie, Freya, all ASEF team, and actually our whole team for coming together and working for the last, actually knowing each other for a good part of it, almost a year now, and producing the outcome, which we will tell you more throughout the presentation. So we are the SDG8 Sustainable Economic Growth and Decent Work for All. And today's presentation will be presented to you by Duc and our group member from Vietnam and myself. In our next slide, you'll see main sort of parts of our project. Over the last 6 months, we worked on a research project, which started with a literature review, a qualitative analysis of existing papers, legislations, and policies existing both in Europe and Asia. In our project, we focused on economic diplomacy and the role that economic diplomacy can play as we look forward to the time of recovery. We believe that the pandemic could serve as a lesson for building back better and revitalizing partnerships between countries and between regions. And the main argument of our policy brief or our group is that economic diplomacy could serve as a key tool for achieving economic revitalization, after the pandemic. In the next slide is just a brief overview of our team. I think we're a great group of a very diverse group from Europe, Asia, Oceania, with almost a perfect gender balance. We have countries like Portugal, China, Netherlands, Vietnam, Australia, Czech Republic, just to name a few. And I'd like to pass it on to Duc to present the project. Duc, you're on mute.
Okay, thank you, Alexandra. So before we start, I would like to give you some introductions about our project. As you can see from the name, we'd like to emphasize the context of the project of why we choose such a topic. So, you know, for years, global organizations and multilateralism have been among key drivers in fostering the development and economic growth at, you know, both national and regional and global level. Despite some drawbacks and criticisms over time, multilateralism and economic independence should continue to be a foundation of the mutual growth and the prosperity. And especially last year, maybe the year of 2020, marked another turn of the history of the humankind as a world battle with the COVID-19 pandemic. Even though the pandemic is not only the driving factors behind the drastic changes in the global political and economic landscape today, the world has witnessed the turbulence in the past decade, which stem from the rise of protectionism, retreats from the multilateralisms, emerging, digitalizations and the technology-centered economic issues and climate-related disasters. So these factors have posed immense pressures on the world economy and the current multilateral trading system. So our project will analyze the importance of the vitalizations of the multilateralisms and the mutual beneficial cooperations between countries through the tool we named is economic diplomacy. So in this sense, economic diplomacy will serve as the tool for the economics of different sides to integrate and to diversify their resources of growth, amplify economic potentials, and take full advantages of these opportunities. The concept about the economic diplomacy, so I think diplomacy is not a new concept, but economic diplomacy is among the most essentials, the instrument utilized by state to maximum their national interests, particularly via international investment or trade, as well as the tourism and cultural exchange. The post-COVID-19 recovery will be the challenge characterized by the great uncertainties and the drastic changes. Why do we know that the pandemic had induced the recessions and exacerbated its impacts? It also brought big opportunities for state to use the economic diplomacies for the most practical tools to navigate through the recovery. So we would like to give you some research findings. Our project find out more research findings. The first one is the COVID pandemic. We all know that has exacerbated the negative impacts on global economy and growth. But in addition, the other factor, including major power that led to protectionism and unilateralisms. During the pandemic, to refrain from exposures, the countries almost in the world adopted the restrictive measures like mobility restrictions, temporary border closures, export and import prohibitions, subsidies, for the sake to support domestic industries of the nations. So this is the size of the protectionisms or nationalisms. We that give you find out that protectionisms refer to the government policies that restrict international trade to help the domestic industries. So in this context, this situation will block the movement of trade in goods and services. They could damage the global supply chain. They cause supply chain disruptions. So the developing countries or the less developed countries have to rely on imported goods and services will be vulnerable. So that's the reason why we found that the COVID accelerated the upward trend of the protectionisms and unilateralisms. And the second is we found out the second finding is the post-COVID-19 recovery will be a turbulent journey for all countries in the world. However, like I said, it is the ample opportunity to consolidate and strengthen mutual trust in their multilateral trading system to gain the international cooperations. So to demonstrate that, we are looking back to the history of the previous pandemic in the past. All global disease outbreak like influenza H1N1 in 2009, MERS-CoV in 2012, and Ebola 2013, and Zika 2013 to 16. So all outbreaks require a level of international cooperation to respond to the pandemic. So we would say that this could not be eradicated without the mutual cooperations and international support. So now we witnessing the ongoing complexity and complications of the COVID pandemic. So it is impossible for one country to counter against the pandemic at the global level. So as a result, although the post-COVID-19 recovery will be a turbulence, it is still a great opportunity for resilience of the multilateralism, so we can revitalize the global market in the global market. And the third finding, we draw the conclusion that FTAs are, like free trade agreements, contribute to the social economic development and the prosperities of the countries that will sign these kind of free trade agreements to boost the trade volume and enhance the investor confidence, create jobs, and improve the welfare. So in terms of the context of the EU and Asia, EU has signed the cover of FTAs with some countries in Asia, like EU-Japan Economic Partnership, EU-Korea FTA, EU-Singapore, and EU-Vietnam. And EU is also under the negotiation with some country in ASEAN now. So these kind of FTAs aim to achieve by building the confidence and providing predictability to draw the foreign investment. Recently, we see that the FTA side between the EU and ASEAN countries become more comprehensive compared to others previous FTAs. They focus on sustainable development in this FTA as a tool to serve to push the sustainable development focus on environment, labor, or something like compared to WTO's commitment, is far more comprehensive. And last year, in the December 2020, EU and ASEAN become a strategic partner. So both parties will have utilized the financial diplomacy to deepen political, economic, and social cooperations. The EU is also the largest investor in ASEAN, whereas ASEAN is the EU third largest trading partner. So this has contributed significantly to ASEAN's source of income, jobs, and the market. And we would say that this achievement of two reasons is the real evidence as a fruit of economic diplomacy and economic cooperation policies. And last one, we would like to focus on the last finding is the innovation and digitalizations. Is it the new concept for the economic diplomacy? So innovation and digitalization will set a rhythm of growth in the future and are the central to modern diplomacies. Innovations is widely recognized as a key driver for the current global economy, national prosperities, and entrepreneur success. Advanced enterprise, with the innovative ideas and solutions will enjoy and will be elevated in the position of global supply chain. As the world moves towards the innovation and oriented economic model, ASEAN countries once championed in industrializations and also themselves in driving seat presently. And our project is ultimate aim to explore the futures, the possibilities of innovations, diplomacies through the current available literature to propose a way forward by introducing some policy recommendations. So these are recommendations that is our projects. I will give the stage to my my friend is Alexandra.
Thank you, Duke. So after all the research, we have come up with 5 main recommendations in our main policy brief. So first of that is to encourage less developed countries to fully maximize the potentials of economic diplomacy in order to induce economic growth, strengthen their negotiating power, and improve welfare of their citizens. Number 2 is to ensure that economic diplomacy is pursued through pragmatism and mutually beneficial cooperation instead of being an overly political instrument. Relaunch the EU-ASEAN FTA negotiations since more bilateral FTAs have been recently concluded by European Union and ASEAN member states. Also establish an Asia-Europe governance regime in innovation and digitalization to enable a human-centered digital transition. And last, we suggest that there is an equitable and equal access to emerging innovation and digitalization within and across developing and developed countries to be prepared for an equitable and inclusive post-pandemic growth. And in our next slide, you'll see our main project outcomes. So as Leonie said, we actually, one of them was achieved yesterday. Sekar and Virag have successfully presented our policy brief at the high-level event. They spoke at the first Asia-Europe Economic and Business Forum, and I think this is one of our main achievements, having our voices heard at such high level. Also, one of the outcomes is that 2 days ago, on the 23rd of November, Asian Vision Institute published our policy brief in their 13th issue. So now that's available online to all of you. And Duke will speak more.
Okay, Alex, thank you, Alexandra. So our outcome will not stop like that. We're trying to publish more 2 sub-policy briefs. The first one is ASEAN EU FTA sub-policy brief, and the second one is Innovation Diplomacy Policy Brief. So in terms of the first one, ASEAN EU FTAs, in this sub-policy brief, we would like to analyze how does economic diplomacy impacts investment, trade, and sustainable developments. Case study from the EU and ASEAN. We all know that back to 2007, ASEAN and EU free trade agreement negotiations, harned the 2 years later. So, however, ASEAN and EU also trying to negotiate to sign with each member, and now we have EU and Singapore FTAs and EU-Vietnam FTA. The most important light of these FTA is we can see is the sustainable development chapters. In these chapters, sustainable development chapter toward to sustainable development goals of the United Nations. In this chapter, both signatory parties have to fulfill the commitment about the new concept like a human rights, sustainable development, focus on environmental and labor commitment or transparency, which have not considered in the previous FTAs and the commitment of WTO. And in the main policy brief, we cannot get deeper analyze in the sub-policy in the main policy brief, and therefore we are going to make analyze with the deeper clause and understanding the provisions of the sustainable development chapters, and that's the reason why we're trying to publish the 2 sub-policy brief. And like I said before, innovation and digitalization as well is very important for the economic diplomacies. In the second sub-policy brief, the innovation diplomacy sub-policy, we will analyze how can innovation diplomacy contribute to the post-COVID reconstructions. So in this sub-policy brief, we analyze, synthesize how the state can take advantage of economic innovations for the communications like a soft power and it is used like a diplomacy method to gain economic cooperations, and that's the two supportive with. But now we are trying to conclude other outcome, but waiting for maybe in the future we will publish more. And these are our outcomes, and that is the end of our project. So I would say thank you very much for your attention, you guys today, and thank you organizing committee for like organize a like-minded connect like-minded people like us to do a project. It's very meaningful for me and for our member as well, and for society. And I would say thank you, Feyer, and thank you, Leonie, for always support us, and thank you, SECAR navigators, always stick us together and try to boost our spirit team. And thank you, the team, our team members, for for implement our project. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alexandra and Duc, for presenting this. This is some solid, intellectual, concrete, physical outcome of this activity. Really fantastic job what you have done, and I'm amazed that you were able over 6 months to really work on this in such in-depth. I'm actually curious to know the level of detail and the research. How were you able to share your thoughts, your research online? I mean, maybe you can share a little bit this process, because what you in a way achieved was you had a project from a non-formal education sector, and you almost did it like in a formal education setting where you had really like almost an academic paper coming out of it. Maybe you can share a little bit your working magic and how you were able to allocate tasks, to really sync with each other, to agree on one paper as well. I mean, there are 9 people writing one paper is not so easy. Who would like to answer? Alexandra, maybe? Alexandra, sure. You go ahead.
Yeah. And Sekar, please jump in at any point of time, because he did a lot of sticking together and gluing us as a group throughout the process. But I think having listened to the presentations yesterday and the day before, I think we got lucky in the sense that our project is online. So we didn't necessarily need to launch anything physical in place in one country, which made it probably easier. But yeah, we did weekly calls. We tried, each of us sort of trying to come up with, considering the very, very diverse group, to try to find something that all of us is good at and is interested. So it was a lot on a volunteering basis. So someone interested in one part would write about that, and someone else having background or access to other information would write on something else. I'm not going to say it was perfect, but at the same time, I think as a group, we still came together and did this.
Thank you. Anything to add, Sika?
Thank you, Tim, for a very comprehensive presentation. But yeah, I just like the word that Leonie used. What is the magic? There's no magic. It's just us trying to complete our objective, and it's just the fact that we had to keep going despite some hurdles. But I'm glad that we pulled through, and yeah, it's been a very emotional 10 months, but I think we did it. I'm really proud of my team.
Thanks, Sika. Yeah, for the ASEF Young Leaders Summit, we have the compass as a symbol. And for those who have browsed a little bit through our publications, you might have seen that the compass sometimes has a needle, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it says 2 needles pointing in the wrong direction. But I think you probably had with Seka and the team always the right direction in front of you. One last question, Seka. What was the feedback when you presented at Viraj at the Asia-Europe Economic and Business Forum? What kind of, did you get any feedback from the audience?
I actually got a lot of photos sent to me because it was displayed on a big screen in a venue here. The Ministry of Commerce actually organized a very big venue for that event, and although some presentations were pre-recorded, but it was quite significant and a lot of social media posts as well. So yeah, it's and also some comments from the leaders at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs commenting on the fact that I managed to squeeze in a spot. But to be fair, it's a huge credit to the ASEF team and the fact that we're working on this intellectual project. So I'm really sorry. No, I just want to say that it was a really good experience, and my co-presenter Viraj was also very well prepared. So yeah, I'm really glad.
Great. So next to our youth intervention, and I think it happens like probably any minute right now, you were also able to intervene with your Leadership in Action project. So I think this is good to see how we with this Young Leaders Summit are able to instill here and there some contributions to the policy level. Congrats again to all of you, and we move on to our next project, number 9, which is called Econ for Life. And I have Martin from the Czech Republic with us and Amelinda. And I hand over straight to both of you. Martin with a nice background, Prague, and Amelinda, you're probably based currently in Indonesia, no?
No, I'm in Japan right now, Leonie.
Oh yeah, sorry. Okay,
yeah, no worries.
Then I leave it to you. Go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Leonie. Good morning and afternoon to all of you respectively. Hope you're doing well. Let me share the screen and we will start with the introduction. So once again, my name is Martin Hammerbauer. I reside in the Czech Republic. Behind me, you can see Prague, where I live, and I will be presenting together with my colleague Amelinda Agus from Indonesia. Our project is called Econ for Life, and as the SDGs suggests, it deals with the decent work and economic growth, actually both of them. Let me just start with a quote from the famous poet and writer Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who lived approximately 200 years or something ago, or something even more, but he said a quote that is still relevant up to today, that many people take no care of their money until they come nearly to the end of it. And after all this time that we know how money is important, it is quite sad to see that still there is quite little education in this area, at least formally. Because they say that money rules the world, but how are we prepared for it in the formal way? If you go for a primary education curriculum, you will find some basic mathematics problem like purchasing fruits in grocery store. These are very practical, of course, but then when you should go to the more advanced thing, it's missing mostly in the secondary education. You get little additional info and only basic accounting at best in some special schools. Then in tertiary education, the fields are already too specialized to acknowledge the financial and economic education, except of course for fields related to business and economics. But in the other fields, you can quite often even obtain a PhD, but miss financial education completely. But in today's world, you know that everyone needs to manage money and everyone needs to apply for a job eventually. And this is where our project Econ for Life comes into place. and we want to tackle both the areas of the SDG8, decent work by educating people how to apply for a job and negotiate good conditions, and also economic growth by managing their savings, not overspending, and also investing. If you do not get such information, here's are just a few selected traps that you can get into. If you don't know how to apply for a job properly, you end up as not the best candidate and you do not get it at all. But if you might get the job, but you might not negotiate the salary, and you end up with less money than you deserve, which is then dragging you down for the rest of your work term. Even if you have money and you overspend, you can still end up living from day to day. Then you get no savings. Then you you are not able, for example, to buy a house. Another way how to tackle it is to take a loan to buy a house. But if you don't understand the conditions and interests, you end up taking a bad loan and in debt collections. And even if you have savings, they can get chewed up by inflations if you don't invest. Or you can invest, but you do not know how to do it properly and cautiously, and your money ends up lost by unreasonable investments. And these are our long-term issues that can then drag you down for many years. So you need to educate yourself early before you actually make some mistakes. So the approach of our project is to raise awareness about these traps of the transition from studying to adult life, which is the crucial period because people are not yet experienced in these practical situations at the time. And we want to promote financial and economic literacy in these practical issues. Our target groups are high school and university students who are about to enter their working life. And for this, we also aim to partner with high schools and already have a few partners in the Czech Republic. And in the end, during the course of our project timeline, our team identified the most relevant topics, which Amelinda will introduce you in detail. And we created financial education materials for youth, developed and delivered by other youth. And let me just stop there for a second why this is crucial. Because of course you can have a senior expert with 30 years of experience presenting something to young people, but this person is already way beyond the situation where they actually stressed about money. The problems are different, the mindset is different, and therefore we wanted to address it as a sort of peer-to-peer learning, because we ourselves identify most with the issues of young people, as we either had them or we still keep having them. So this is, I think, what is quite innovative about our approach. And during the course of our project, we also formed a network to support the cause even after the ASEFYLS ends. This network is about to be established in the Czech Republic. It's already formed. It just needs to be stamped by the court as an NGO. Its name is FINET, which is a shortcut for financial education. And within this network, this NGO is connecting a number of volunteers in financial literacy, youth organizations that are already established, and even senior experts from the Czech Republic, which are helping to ensure that the financial education will be conducted properly and that the content will be still very professional, even though it's prepared by young people. So we conducted also a launch event called Youth for Financial Literacy in the 21st Century. Within this launch event, we presented the 6 educational modules that we have prepared so far, and they are ready to go in relevant topics, such as job application, including job interview and motivational letter and CV, I'm sorry, then budgeting, investments, and personal finance. And we conducted it on Saturday, November 13. We had approximately 240 registrations. Not all of them, of course, were there present and all the time at the event. And we also had panel discussion with wireless participants from Asia and Europe on youth issues. And we summarized our findings there. What are the most dire situations we can face and how maybe to tackle it. And with this, I hand over the word to my colleague, Amelinda.
Right. Thank you, Martin. And hi, everyone. I'm Amelinda. I'm from Indonesia, but I currently live in Japan to pursue my undergraduate study. And I will be covering the next session of the presentation, which is about our final project workshops. And next slide, please, Martin. All right, so generally speaking, the workshops that we conducted consisted of 2 1-hour sessions. So the first one talked about job hunting process and the other one focused more on the basics of money management. So the target of this workshop session is mostly youth across ASEF countries, as the materials that we had prepared would be important and helpful for them as they transition from their school life to their working life. And we also have stakeholders from ASEF countries as well to help us facilitate the event. It was held online through Zoom following the launch of our project, Econ for Life. All right. So for the first workshop titled Getting a Job, Applying Made Easy, it consisted of 3 topics, CV, cover letter, and also interview. So in this topic were chosen to help youth understand about the job hunting process in general, and also allow them to learn some useful tips and tricks that they can use to help them secure a job later on. We believe that this would be very helpful for them, given the changes that happen in our working environment due to the pandemic right now. For example, we are giving them tips and tricks to conduct online interview, which was actually very rare in the past, yet it is getting more common nowadays. So we believe that it is very important for youth nowadays to learn such practical skills. It was presented by our own team members as well. We have Lars from Lao PDR, and then Valeria from the Russian Federation, and also Matko from Croatia. And next, as for the second workshop, we talk about the basics of money management, and it consisted of 3 topics as well, which are personal finance, budgeting, and then investing. So through this workshop, we wanted to raise awareness about money management and also help youth to gain better control of their finance. Because as Martin has mentioned earlier before, most youth nowadays, they don't really know how to handle their finance once they transition to the working life, because they during their school life, they have their parents or they have someone else to take care of it for themselves. But since now they're transitioning to the working life and they're alone, they have to take care of everything by their own self. It's important for them to learn such practical skills. So for example, during this workshop, we mainly talk about the stages of financial condition, from the protection stage, where we teach them how to create emergency fund, how to do budgeting, and also how to purchase insurance that they are essential for their self-being. And until a more expert topics, such as introducing various investment instruments that they can purchase later on. This workshop was also presented by our team members, including myself, and we also have Ngon Lim from Cambodia, and also Ivar from Estonia. And next, let's talk about the process and key challenges that we faced during preparing this event. So this workshop session is actually the final product of our long process of preparing and also discussion. It all started with our regular team meetings, where we talk a lot about the idea for the workshop itself. We made sure that everyone chipped in their idea and also contributed equally to the discussion. And after gathering the ideas, it continues to a stage that we call as synchronization, session where we kind of narrowed down the idea that we had so far. So since our team members come from different countries, this stage is particularly important because when we're talking about financial awareness and job hunting process, they might differ between countries. So we need to make sure that everything that we talk about during the workshop is going to be appropriate for everyone attending the session. For example, financial awareness tends to be higher in some European countries than in other parts of the world. So the youth there might already familiar with budgeting or even investment terms, but different thing happens in some other countries. So at this stage, we're trying to see the common problems and solutions that we can talk about during the workshop and can be of benefit for everyone attending the session, no matter where they're from. And finally, after the long process, we were able to bring the event into life. And next. As you can see on the screen right now, this is how our final event looks like. So we successfully conducted an interactive online event with over 70 participants across ASEF countries. And now we have reached the end of our presentation. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thanks so much, Melinda and Martin. Very important practical workshops, materials from you for youth. And I hope that will help and benefit a lot of peers to have a smoother financial start into adulthood and managing adulthood. Melinda, you mentioned something interesting at the end, that during your discussions you realized that the level of financial education, financial literacy is very different across Asian European countries, or also within each region. Maybe both of you can share a little bit about this, and also something which could be important for our audience is these materials are available in English and then in which other countries as well. If you could answer these two questions, that would be great.
Okay, thank you, Lenny. Maybe I'll start, Martin, if you don't mind. Okay, so maybe regarding the first question about how financial awareness tend to differ between European and Asian countries, I think the reason for this goes back to the lifestyle itself, Leonie. So, for example, I'm from Indonesia. It's one of the developing countries right now, but I also live in Japan right now. So I feel like for youth who are living in developed countries, more developed countries, they tend to be more independent, so they seek information by themselves. Like they have more responsibility since they were a kid. But like in developing countries, like the relationship between the children and the parents is tighter. Like I feel like growing up, I always had my parents, I don't have to think about anything. Like they'll take care of everything for me. So I think, and that's the main difference, Leonie, in this way. At the end of the day, youth with more responsibility, more independence tend to be more aware about financial condition, and they tend to be more ready as well in regards to preparing their finances and how they're going to transition to adulthood. And regarding the second question, since this workshop is conducted in English as well, so it might be quite challenging for the audience who comes from non-English speaking countries, but at the end of the day, my team members were trying so hard not to put too many technical terms or knowledge in this. As I mentioned it in the presentation as well, we have the stage called synchronization, so where we mainly discuss about how to make this workshop as efficient and as easy to understand as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. You would like to add a few points?
Maybe just shortly, because Melinda summarized it perfectly, in my opinion. So maybe I would just add that in Europe, there's also sort of two dimensions, because for the part of Europe that was struck with socialism before 1990s, there is also the issue of having a difficult transfer from knowledge from parents to youth, because our parents, for example, I'm from the Czech Republic, so I'm also part of the former so-called eastern section of Europe, and our parents did not grow up in a market environment, so they do not have this knowledge themselves. and then actually you don't have anyone who would pass you on this knowledge within the family. So again, you end up relying on the internet. But in the Western Europe, the situation is a bit better. It should be much better, but unfortunately, it isn't that good as the historical development would suggest. And regarding the materials, I think that since our target group are quite young people, sometimes even high schoolers, it's important to make it as approachable as possible and concise. But in any way, the materials will also be available in Czech, because they will then feed into the Czech network that we are also developing.
Thank you so much. So you shared with us that you have set up an NGO, FinEd. Wishing you lots of success with this NGO, that it brings your econ for life, keeps it alive and brings it further, that it grows from this little baby to a strong, solid youth, young adult, and look forward to following this development of this NGO and your future work. Thanks to both of you and your whole team.
Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Leonie.
So our next Leadership in Action project, I'm excited to listen to that because we have all been in this situation, work from home edition. Currently not anymore. As you can see, I have a beautiful ASEF background. I'm not at home. You are not seeing either a blurry background, children running around, cats walking over the table. But we had a lot to handle, to deal with. So let's hear what the Adjustment Manual Work from Home edition is recommending us, how we keep our mental health well and how we can safeguard that. So happy to have Prakriti from India with us, wearing our ASEF Young Leaders t-shirt, which all the participants have received, hopefully by now, from us. She was the navigator for this project, and then Trang from Vietnam, who was a team member. Floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Leonie. I'm just about to share the presentation with you all so we can get started. Thank you so much for joining us, to both the people on this Zoom call and everybody watching through the live streams. We are very excited to share this project that we've put almost 10 months of work in. I can't believe only 10 months ago, I was discussing this project with Leonie and Freya and hoping it would go well, but I'm so excited to say that these 10 months have been amazing for me and my team. And we're excited to take you through our entire journey with us. So without further ado, I'm just going to hand it over to Trang so we can go through a brief project overview, and then I'll take you into our two parts that we have to this project. So over to my presenter, Trang.
Okay, so good morning and good afternoon, and also good evening, everyone. So yeah, it's my honor on behalf of my teams to present about the projects along with the Prakriti today. And so firstly, I'm going to give you a brief overview of our project, what has been accomplished so far, and what we are here for today. So firstly, that I'm sure that everyone used to ask yourself, how have you managed life and work balance? How do you see our life and work environment changing in the future? And what are the recommendations for the healthy and productive workforce? So to provide the participants with the answer for these questions, and for ourselves as well, we decided to divide the group into two small teams to deeply work on it. So firstly, the first one, which was on the policy recommendation for mental health issue, and the second one, which on the workshop series focusing on the well-being area. So we in terms of time frame, the duration time was separated into two periods. The preparation stage took around 1 month from June to July. And obviously, we spent the rest of the time for execution from July to November. And also align with the two work for of two teams. So we focus on two sustainable development goals. The first one is the sustainable development goals number 3. We have the individuals experience mental health struggles such as anxiety, depressions, and decreased focus and burnout. And the second one focus on the sustainable development goals number 8, with the mental health was an invisible consequence which severely affected the efficiencies and productivity of the business. So two teams worked very hard for the past 10 months to aim with the to achieve some aims. So for the workshop series, also my team, we addressed the issues on individual level with work from home professionals. We're designing and executing the series of the skill building workshops for resilience with the goal of helping them adapt better to cope with their professional requirements without compromising the mental health. And the other brief, the policy brief, that addressed the issue on the macro level with the mental health policy in the professional environments. And also that developed the policy recommendation brief to be distributed to work from home institutions and relevant protections and sharing good practice for the healthy professional environment. Yeah, so this is all about the project overview. So I would like to give the stage for our navigator, Prakriti, one of the team member of the policy group as well. We'll talk to you about the policy group has significantly done so far in more details.
Yes, thank you so much, Trang. I think a great point she also raised is how interconnected the SDGs are. It's almost difficult to put specific projects in just one SDG, and I think this project is a great example of that because it's got so many layers. But the idea of doing both a workshop series and a policy brief was that we wanted to address both the short-term needs of work from home professionals and how we could kind of impact long-term good practices in a work from home environment as well. Because it's not just enough to address the needs, you also have to think about what long-term efficiency you can kind of help out. So this is our policy group. We were so lucky to have such a diverse group of individuals with totally different perspectives coming into this. And I think that's what actually helped us enrich our conversations on how it's really hard to actually just pick a few areas to concentrate this policy brief on. So I'm just going to take you through our entire process. The first phase was kind of setting the direction and starting our research, because a lot of us don't have that much experience in mental health policy specifically, because that itself is actually a very new area that's coming in specific context to working efficiency. So the first step was narrowing down our parameters, setting objectives, and conducting our research. So conducting extensive literature reviews to try to understand what we were looking for. And then the second was developing the survey itself. And this was actually quite a heated back and forth with me and my team members, and everyone was involved in the discussion because all of us have different perspectives on what we should include in this survey, but we managed to narrow it down to 3 specific areas. The first was looking at mental distress itself and how flexible work environments were in addressing those needs. The second was a cultural comparison, because I think it would be a big miss to have a group this diverse and not take into consideration cultural comparisons on how different environments kind of perceived mental health at a workplace. And the third was a kind of idea of third-party involvement. I think it was one of the big differences almost between the European and the Asian perspective was the involvement of third parties that kind of step in to help with professional needs or labor-based needs. So that was a very interesting area that was new to me as well. The third phase talked about our survey rollout. And because of the kind of condensed timeline we were working with, getting the survey out and getting it to as many people as possible was definitely an area that we kind of faced some challenges with. And I also understand that sometimes when people are answering a survey, they don't want to talk about things that are kind of personal, like mental health. So we perceive that as one of the challenges for why we were getting maybe a lower response on our survey as well. But then we realized it's more about accessing target audiences that actually do want to participate and get their point of view out there to kind of help us either share good practices or highlight things that needs to be improved on. And this was actually a specific area of bias that we might have had when we're talking about mental health. It's so easily to go to a negative bias, right? To say, oh, they're doing nothing. Nobody cares about our mental health. It's not being considered. But what's very interesting is that we learned a lot about good practices that are being implemented and should be talked about more. So that specifically is something we found very interesting with the responses we've got so far. And we're currently in our last phase. We're in the writing the policy brief phase right now, where we're trying to prioritize the findings that we've observed, the trends we've observed, and kind of organize our outcomes on how we want to put it together as a final policy brief. We are currently working on writing our final version of the policy brief. My team is going in back and forth about recommendations and how it should be phrased and all of that good stuff that really lends to getting a great document out there. And we hope to have it released by the first week of December. So that's from me and my side on the policy group. And I'm going to give it back to Trang so she can go over what the workshop group has done over the last 10 months.
All right, so it's me again to present about very proud to be the workshop team. So our team have 4 members worked along with the support of our facilitator, Prakriti from India. So thanks to the diversified background and coming from different regions, we have a 10-month period with lots of fun, excitement, and also productive work on what we deserve to do for our society. So from the left to right, it is me from Vietnam, our enthusiastic navigator, Prakriti from India, Sophia from Cambodia, Makito from Japan, and Gustav from Latvia. So regarding the work, what we has done for the past 10 months, we successfully conducted 6 different workshop sessions within 3 pillars. The first one is self-time, focus on the mental wellness. The second is on-time communication over an online medium. And the off-time, stay mobile, stay safe, and stay connected. So during the time we conducted these workshop sessions, there are some challenging areas that we tried to overcome, and eventually it became a valuable lesson learned for us. So this is, please, next slide. All right, so the lesson learned that we have so far, first one is connecting with the potential speakers, professional trainer, consultants, and educator from all over the world to join us in these sessions. Second one is generating frameworks that encourage interactive activities and engagement in the session. You know, it's hard for us to interact virtually, so we try to find out different tools and also games and to support during implementing these sessions. And the final one is building a network through the social media. So we're more than happy to record the outcomes 2 weeks ago when the last session was finished with the positive features and good feedback. So over 50 sign up with 6 workshop sessions conducted over 3 months, and providing participants with tools, mindsets to tackle their own issue while working from home. Better access to the resources provided by our professionals to continue good practice. Last but not least, connecting speakers and participants for further discussion. So It's all about our projects, both the policy group and workshop. Thank you so much for your listening, and also thank ASEF for having me and my team today. I'm grateful for working with the most dedicated, smart, and supportive team. Thank you, Prakriti, our project navigator, who always on the way to support us, even the conflict of the time zone. Thank you, my team member who took responsible for the social media promotion, Sophia and Makidor, and also sending a congratulations on the work to team members that are not present today. You're doing great job. So thank you so much. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach us to us with the social media channel, Instagram or Facebook. It's always welcomed, where we frequently communicate about the words, documents, and helpful resources related to all aforementioned information. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thanks, Prakriti and Tram. I mean, this sounded, apart from the fact that it was a great project, like a really close and smooth and fruitful team collaboration. Also, the way you presented your work, I think the audience could really see from that you were all in sync, and everybody had a responsibility over 10 months and took it very serious, and that's like the outcome of it. I mean, these workshops, the policy briefs, excellent coordination, and really wonderful team spirit. So congrats to all of you. When we started the project with you, we were intrigued by the titles of your workshops: self-time, off-time, and on-time. Well chosen. Maybe what you can do, as my question to you, is share with us like one recommendation, what you have learned through the past 10 months, through your team collaboration, but also in these workshops, in these three areas: self-time, off-time, and on-time, and what is important for mental health for you, but also for the rest of us.
Okay, so maybe I start. Yeah, we had a lot of debate actually over the workshop titles. We had speakers who didn't like them, and team members who suddenly decided they weren't good ideas but didn't tell me when we thought of them. But thank you, Leonie, for saying that you liked them. I hope the speakers hear this somewhere, somehow. But what we learned a lot, I think, because one kind of highlight with this is that we didn't want to, while we were trying to teach other people with mental health in a work from home environment, we didn't want to, not apply those lessons to ourselves as well. And that was kind of difficult. I think something we learned with Benny in the self-time workshop was really about being aware about what your needs are and upfront about what you can kind of contribute in that moment. So that's something I definitely took away from his session. With the on time with Ramon, it was more about making work online fun. A lot of the times when you're in physical spaces, the fun kind of creeps into the work and you don't really have to think about it. But when you're online with other people, you kind of have to schedule out time to have fun and talk to your team members and kind of build a personal connection. So that's definitely what I learned with Ramon, and hopefully tried to make it a little bit more fun for my team members. And with on time with Ivan, was a lot about communication and how much information can be transmitted over an online medium. Sometimes in person, it's so much easier to kind of communicate because you've got body language and all of that other stuff helping you kind of put your point across. But on an online, you only get me in this little square. So I kind of have to be a little more concise and a little more condensed with how much information I'm presenting. So that's a little bit of a highlight reel from each of our workshops and what I learned personally. But yeah, Trang, would you anything to add? I'd love to hear your point of view as a team member.
Yes, also that Prakriti taught previously, we have lots of lessons from the workshops for ourselves as well. So I just have one thing that definitely remembered of the task during the break room session. So how we were affected by the behavior of our leaders. So it's also affected on our mental health as well. So we try to talk about our action, our reaction to his behavior, and this action will lead to the mental health issue that we are facing off. So it's very helpful and also teach us a lesson that in the work of in the office when we had to interact with the leader, the parts, and also always other stakeholders also reflect how the mental health issue that we are facing off. So yeah, that's a lesson that I learned from one of the workshops that conducted by the self-time mental wellness.
Thank you. Yeah, at this point, a big thank you also to Ramon and Ivan. They have been the trainers and facilitators for these workshops. They are also ASEF education alumni, so it's nice to see that it is developed by peers, for peers, and then extends to a larger group of young leaders and a young audience. Congrats again to both of you, and looking forward to your policy brief to be launched early December. We'll keep an eye on that. For my next session, I would like to invite Ans Kuram from Pakistan. Ans, first an early note from our inclusion advisor, James, please talk slowly. James does his best to do the note-taking, but sometimes his hands are not as fast as our lips and speech. So if you can slow down a little bit, and then James is able to follow accordingly. So Ans is the navigator for our last project under SDG8 called Leaders of the Future Bootcamp. And I hand over to you. I think the title already indicates quite a lot what it is about, and we're eager to hear more.
Thank you, Leonie. I hope you guys can see the screen.
It's all fine. Thank you.
Great. James, I will try my best to speak as slowly as possible. I have a tendency to speak fast as it is, so if you need me to go slower further, just let me know. So it's a pretty difficult task to go, to follow up everything that's been said so far and the projects that have been executed. I hope that our little initiative can stand up to the previous projects as well. So I thought before we really get into it, I give you sort of an idea of where this whole initiative started from, what was the inspiration behind it. Leaders of the Future Bootcamp this year with ASEF was actually the third iteration of this grassroots project. What you're seeing in front of you are the posters of the previous two projects, and essentially really the vision is to prepare the youth for the future of work. We really want to target 18 to 30-year-old students or entry-level professionals or entrepreneurs and help them understand what skills they need for the disruption that has been caused by the fourth industrial revolution, with the idea of trying to reach out to the most excluded segments of the population, and hopefully build up a cross-border knowledge-sharing platform with experts and alumni. How LFB is executed is it's an annual collaboration between the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers Islamabad Hub and Solutions for a New Age, which is an NGO in Pakistan. We focus on the trainings, we focus on skills that are mentioned in the Future of the Jobs report in 2020 by the World Economic Forum. I've added a snippet here for you, and try to get into these by trying to understand how they are applied practically in real life. The first boot camp was held in 2019. It had in-person training sessions and was supported by the British Council. The second edition was held online due to the pandemic and was supported by Future Team Pakistan. In 2021, we had the pleasure of being supported by the Asia Europe Foundation, and for the first time, we scaled it beyond Pakistan by adding international speakers and partners and also participants this year. And the sessions are conducted by experts in their fields, which include World Economic Forum Young Global Fellows, members of academia, opinion leaders, This year, we also had a session by our very own Leonie, and I think I forgot to mention this. It was voted, voted joint best session, one of the best sessions in the boot camp, as voted by our participants actually. So over the past 2 years, this is the indicators that we have. We have 4 main goals, and we sort of have 2 indicators for each particular goal. Over the last 2 years, in the previous 2 iterations, we've sort of reached to over 100 people. And as you can see, around 37% of them are professionals, while majority of them are students. The age group reflects the target audience that we want to go after, with a skew toward 21 to 24-year-olds. We also want to try and reach out to a diverse set of people in Pakistan. Our previous 2 iterations had a very balanced gender ratio, and we had actually reached out to participants in 21 different cities and also one in the UAE. Quality of skills training sessions is also important. We always take feedback of all our sessions. So over 8 out of 10 people seem to find the trainings relevant and informative. And finally, in terms of knowledge sharing, 8 alumni held training sessions for other platforms in 2020, while we had 3 partnerships with external organizations to conduct trainings. Not only that, the ASEF YLS Summit also, in fact, has 1 alumni from the Leaders of the Future Bootcamp as a participant this year as well. So LFB 3.0, this year, the theme was the Great Reset. It was also an initiative by the World Economic Forum. LFB 3.0 focused on highlighting how COVID-19 disrupted everyday lives and the opportunities created by it. The main event was held as a 2-day boot camp from 26 to 27 June 2021. It consisted of 3 hour-long programs from 10 a.m. UTC to 1 p.m. UTC and featured both Pakistani and international speakers. Personally, I was very happy that we managed to get 3 speakers, and not only that, we tried to ensure that there was a mix of nationalities to reflect the ASEF makeup. So while we had half of the speakers that were Pakistan-based, since the project is focused in Pakistan, we also had 2 European speakers who coincidentally also work in the Asian market. So that sort of led an interesting perspective of how things are. I apologize, we had 2 Pakistani speakers, and then we also had 2 further speakers who had knowledge of other markets. So it was a very nice mix of experience and different angles. The topics are mentioned here below, and all of these topics, the session topics, were linked with one of the skills mentioned in the World Economic Forum's 2020 Future of Jobs report. This year's indicators, we saw that this year we reached out to around 60 people in the main event and 40 people in the follow-up. I will be talking about the follow-up event in a bit. We reached out to a slightly older audience this year, and this was reflected in the occupation as well. So almost a 50-50 split between students and those that were employed somewhere. We had a 50-50 split for gender and geography. I'm very excited to say that we reached out to 20 plus countries, including 3 non-ASEF. I was very surprised that we had participants from Africa as well, and very pleased with that. Similarly, the quality of the sessions was the same. Around 8 out of 10 people found the trainings relevant to their work or their studies, and 8 out of 10 found the trainings to be informative. In terms of knowledge sharing, we had 4 local and 5 international partners supporting the project this year, and the event recordings were shared and streamed at different platforms. And the last time I counted, they had 30 plus shares. I know it's not a big deal in terms of social media virality, but I've personally never shared content that has been shared more than 30 times personally. So I was pretty happy to see that people were sharing the work that we were doing. A big thank you to all our partners, local partners, including the Global Shippers Community Islamabad, SAGE, Kissa Khwanan, it's a storytelling platform, and NIC Peshawar. It's a federal level incubator for startups. They were also our partners this year. In terms of international partners, we of course had the Asia Europe Foundation. A big thank yous personally to Leonie and Freya and Alvaro for all their help and support. Apart from that, we had 4 student-run organizations, including Global Fabulous IR, Students Innovation Center in Austria, Young Professionals Network in Brunei, and the Green Sustainable Forum in Croatia. Um, Honestly, all of this would not have been possible without the team. We had around 14 people from 14 different countries. It presented a big challenge trying to figure out how to meet together, but all of them were really helpful, and each person added something from their own. Some people helped me recruit speakers, other people helped me recruit local partners, or they would help in the organization of the sessions. As I mentioned, we also, one of the aims of the project was to have follow-up sessions. We've had one so far, and there are a few others planned for later. But the follow-up session conducted by Elliot, Jonathan, Nadia, and Maria, it impacted 40 people, and partners also included the Young Professionals Network in Brunei, Global Shapers Islamabad, and the Global Shapers Hub in Bandar Seri, Beguan. One of the participants, in fact, was a member of parliament in Brunei, and this was pretty impressive because the main event was not able to get such high-profile participants, but the follow-up session was. In terms of personal learnings and reflections, we did do a SWOT analysis. This was part of the navigators training as well. So I thought it would be good to share with you the reality and the expectations we had and how we actually ended up. One of the strengths that we have is that we have a great network of experts to provide relevant training sessions for the boot camp. We have a great alumni network. As I mentioned earlier, one of the alumni was actually a part of the ASEFYLS as well. And we now have expertise in conducting online and offline sessions for participants. However, in this journey, we did realize that when it comes to skills training, that perhaps because of being online, and also due to the fact that this was an international event, we are probably reaching out to people, we're reinforcing skills within a relatively privileged background community and those who live in cities. Interestingly, one of the presentations earlier mentioned language. Given that it's an international event, we have to make the sessions in a language everyone can understand, which is generally English. That also meant that we might be excluding people who actually might need such sessions the most. And then another weakness that we did identify particularly this year was how to make our sessions more interactive online. However, the opportunities that we have is that because of online sessions, we now can expand this project. We have successfully managed to scale the bootcamp beyond Pakistan to other countries, and hopefully, move on by building further public-private partnerships to access business leaders and potentially funding down the line. The threat is, once again, is trying to stay true to our vision, but at the same time scaling up as well. How do we ensure we get people on board that do not have access to internet or previous exposure to technology? Working on making transparent way to hold people accountable on their trainings and the impact that we're making on ground, and also keeping our content relevant because technology changes every other day. So keeping our content relevant is also pretty important as well. And finally, and a few personal learnings. For me, managing people from different time zones is extremely difficult. For all ASEF related people, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. UTC is a great time slot because that's morning in Europe and not that late in East Asia. So I have a lot of respect to the ASEF EDU team for managing 50 plus, not in fact, more than 50 plus people, 150 plus people for I think I forgot to add one there for the ASEF YLS event. I don't know how you guys do it. I had to manage 40 people. It was pretty difficult, coordinating on a time that everyone could agree on. Food is an ASEF YLS Navigator's tested icebreaker. If you ever want to break the ice with someone, start with food. Very importantly, I learned this during our training and then moving forward as well, that each initiative grows one baby step at a time. You can't expect to change the world in one go. Be prepared to pivot and adjust as you progress. Personally speaking, I never thought that last year while working on this project that we would ever manage to attract international speakers and participants. This year, we managed to do that. So on a personal level, that small step forward is in fact a big achievement for me, although it might not be in the grand scheme of things. And finally, use all the help you can get. Surround yourself with great people and great team. I had great support from all the 14 team members and also from ASEF as well. So thank you guys. That's it from me. If there's anything anyone would like to ask, please go ahead.
Thanks so much, and I'm monitoring the chat if there are comments or questions, but congratulations to you and your team. You have been the first one who actually implemented this leadership in action, or one of the elements of your leadership in action project. I think, if I can't remember now, time passed so quickly. It was June, end of June or early July when you had your big conference. So you had a very like a rocket start already for your activity, and as we can see, you had also a lot of time to analyze the outcomes. It was good to see that you had like your indicators measured your success, and at the end, I'm happy to hear that you've been all of you have been satisfied and glad about the outcomes. And as you said, it's a baby. There might be some baby steps if you look into the whole youth, the target group you wish out to reach. I know that you have started in Pakistan, you extended it, but really the key challenge would be to reach out not those who have access to these materials, but basically those who are really excluded because of digital divide or because of other reasons. Also nice to see that you included at the end some personal learnings, talking about food. That's true. It's almost coffee time right now. I have to ask our participants and audience to have a coffee soon, or get soon to the coffee machine before we take a short break and go to our next session. My last question to you, or last question for today to you is, you had a lot of partner organizations who supported you. Some of them came from participants, but how are you engaging them in the future? Are you having like some formalized partnerships already to continue that? What are the plans?
So the main plan for partners, and honestly, this was something that I realized later on, that, hey, we are engaging partners. How do we keep them engaged moving forward as well? The main plan, honestly, is to get them involved in the Pakistani ecosystem. We have forwarded a list, we have forwarded all list of our partners to NIC Peshawar, which is funded by the government of Pakistan. And we are pushing them to try and reach out to partners and work with them. Most importantly, although they weren't our partners, we had people reach out to us from non-ASEAN countries like Turkey who wanted to work with this project in the future as well. But currently we are discussing with them how we can potentially leverage away in a sustainable manner, not just marketing, promotion, and just participate, but how can we actually take this forward? How can we integrate our project with theirs in terms of baby steps learning? That's another thing I learned as well, that you have to integrate and let go of a lot of the vision or the goals that you have for yourself, and try to, in order to create a bigger impact, and work with others to do that. So that's something we're looking forward towards, trying to integrate partners into the Pakistani ecosystem. That's really the key thing that we're trying to figure out moving forward, that how can we do that. I'm done.
Thank you so much. Yes, I knew it must happen one time during hosting an event that I'm on mute and not unmuted. Thank you so much, Ans, and also for you all the best, that this initiative will grow over the years. You mentioned food earlier, I mention it now. Grab a coffee, you have 50 minutes time. I look at Singapore time. Oh, sorry, yes, I was already excited to go for a break, but yeah, I forgot our word cloud. We have done it over the last 2 sessions when we talked about SDG8 and 4. These are the key words, the key concepts which come to the mind of our participants when they think about decent work and economic growth. Of course, it is sustainability, but it is nice to see it is about opportunities, it's about inclusion and equality. And yeah, let's hope that our leadership in action projects have contributed to this over the past 6 months. Now it's time, I think, for a coffee. We have here in Singapore, it's 5:30. We will take about 15 minutes for this break, and then we are doing our launch panel, pre-launch panel, in fact, on the ASEM Youth Report with experts and leaders from the youth sector. So to let our online audience know, it is a different link for those who join us on YouTube. For those who are already in this meeting, these are our ASEFYLS participants, they can just stay on that Zoom call now. So I'll see you again in 15 minutes, 5:45 in Singapore.